What's up, everybody in Chiefs Kingdom? Here with JP, Caleb, Tommy, Quentin. We're all on the show. We're on the Fantasy Sports Network. Can't really ask for much more. How you guys doing?
Doing good. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
You pretty good.
Yeah.
You guys doing all right?
I got a microphone, man. Y'all be proud of me. I got a microphone.
Okay.
You sound much better. There you go.
Okay.
Man. That's cool. Good.
You guys enjoying the afternoons over in Kansas City?
Man, as long as we're not watching the Royals, man, everything's been going really
Jesus
good.
Christ. I was hoping we would just avoid that. You know, we're just gonna move on. We're gonna take our shot. We're gonna move on now.
Do we need to have a moment though, just for the Royals, 1-12? Do we need to have a moment?
What's the point?
No?
I mean,
Okay.
It doesn't matter to me. I mean, I'm good with talking about how bad they are.
I think for Quentin's sake, we'll just move on.
They're 1-12
Is the record
at home.
100? Oh, okay. I thought the record. What's the record for the most losses in the season? Because that's where we're barreling towards right now.
Well, didn't we have 103
I
at
believe
one
so.
time? I think we lost 103 games one year.
All I know is this: the tickets are about to be cheap in about 2 weeks. So,
dude, it's gonna be like a 3-for-1
for like $20.
It's like those you see this always fly around the internet when the Raiders are playing. It's like someone broke into my car and left 2 extra Raiders tickets.
Yep,
It's about
exactly.
the Royals.
So it'll be keep people safe out there.
Oh god.
Well, they might have it to where the Diamond Club might actually be affordable now. So JP, Quentin, Tommy, Philip, and we might be able to go for $100.
Company retreat.
Hey man,
I like it.
I'm okay with that.
And they serve beer until the 8th inning now, so it'll work out for us, guys.
Well, that's different.
That's all I'm
Wow.
I was told down there, I know before we move on, like they'll bring you your food. You can order and they'll bring you your food. So if you want a cheeseburger every inning, they'll do that.
They do.
Hey,
They do.
that's not bad.
Yeah.
But
Dude, don't get me wrong. Free hot dogs, I can eat a lot of free hot dogs.
Mhm.
Okay, they may they may be coming up right afterwards, but I can eat a lot of hot dogs.
Hey,
Mhm.
when I was a kid, in fact, I think it was the first time when I got Frank White to sign that ball for me.
Mhm.
I went and got a hot dog, and it was gray.
Mm.
It looked like
Oh.
it was
Ugh,
gray,
man.
absolutely gray.
Oh.
You went to kitchen
So-
nightmares type stuff.
Yeah, so I walked up to my mom and I said, "This is supposed to be a hot dog," and she goes, "That's no hot dog." And I said, "Well, what the hell is it then?" She goes, "I don't know, but that don't look like a hot dog." So I just threw it away. Right. Fast forward, I'm 19 at Royal Stadium. I wasn't playing. I was just there in the dugout, just warming up. I had my little stint as a reliever. And I thought, shit, you know what? Bottom of the 8th inning, I'm getting a hot dog. It was gray.
Yeah. At that point,
So I walked up to Frank and I said, "Frank, do you remember when you signed that ball for me? We talked about it when I got up to Omaha." He goes, "Oh, yeah. I said, "Look at this hot dog." He goes, "You didn't get that from here, did you?" I said, "Absolutely." He goes, "I figured you did. I was just asking." I said, "Bro, when I was 11 years old, I got the exact same hot dog. I don't think there's any difference. I think this is the exact same one I got when I was 11 years old when I was here." He was cracking up. It was so gross, man. I was like, what the hell? But
They don't believe in the FIFO process, is what you're saying.
I don't think, man, I think nitrates is their best friend. I don't know what else to say.
I will say a beer tastes different while sitting and watching your favorite Royal or your favorite baseball team losing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is what. Look, he said, "My question is, how the hell did they get in the stadium for the Chiefs?" Well, you got to think about it from 2 different perspectives. You got 2 different owners that one is planning on, considering staying where he's at and just buying up everything and making it a giant, huge Arrowhead complex. All the homes wrapped around it, everything else.
Well, can we actually kind of bring that to our first topic? Because, there's rumors that are they trying to move the stadium in Northland, or what's going on?
They're going in East Village.
Okay.
That's where they're going.
Okay.
I've been paying pretty close attention to this. They're going to go in East Village. There's a bus depot that's right off the highway right there. I bet that that's where they're going to go. It's
exactly where
village.
They're going.
It's over by, it's sort of over by like 18th and Vine area. right?
Mhm.
So it'll be in that sort of complex. They'll make their own baseball thing. It's like most of the other ballparks in the country, right? Think of it sort of like what the Green Bay Packers did. What did they call
Mhm.
that? Like
I don't know.
yeah, they've got a name for it. It's like
Mhm.
Championship Village or something like that. It's going to be
Mhm.
something like that. Both the Chicago teams have one.
Yep,
The
I've been to
Rangers
the
have
Wrigleyville
it.
one. It's nice.
That's what they're going to try and do. So
So, if for us fans, what should the Chiefs do? How can they quote unquote make that area better for both the fan experience, but also money wise? Because
You're talking about where it's at now?
Yeah, where
I
the
think
arrowhead's at.
Here's
once
what they plan. This is what I've been
Kaufman
told.
moves,
Mhm.
once Kaufman gets out of there, I think they'll bulldoze Kaufman Stadium, build new Arrowhead there, and then they have because Kaufman Stadium's pretty big, right? You can, with that land, you can do what you want. Then what you can do is you can develop some of that parking lot space because then you'd get rid of Arrowhead, right? So you can develop some of that land that's there already. And I think part of the reason why they haven't done it yet is develop that area, besides the Taco Bell and the Denny's,
Yeah,
is
there's nothing over
because I think it's difficult because you have two different owners of the franchises right there. So it's hard to develop that area inside of like the actual parking lot.
Mhm.
So I think that it would be good. First of all, I'm pro downtown baseball stadium. I think baseball is a downtown sort of thing. And it does suck that, you have to drive really far out of your way in order to go watch a baseball game. Football, I think, is different, especially here in Kansas City, because tailgating is such a deep part of going to a Chiefs game, and it becomes a whole event. You don't just wake up one day and decide, I'm going to go to a Chiefs game today. I've done that plenty of times with Royals games where it's a night game, it's a Friday night, you're not doing a whole ton, and you're just like, the Royals are playing tonight. Let's go to a Royals
Man, you could
game.
tell how young you are.
I think that's why, a downtown baseball stadium is better. Plus, you've got power and light that wouldn't be that far away. So,
yeah.
You're like a puppy, man. I mean, we used to wake up and literally say, we're going to go to a Chiefs game and then just go.
Yeah, when
that's how it was.
Tickets were a nickel.
Yeah.
No, look at this motherfucker here. No, listen. Look, you could buy a ticket.
Did you buy tickets with a hay
probably $50. What do you say? Somebody's going to end up. You're going to keep talking, and the sandwich is just going to fall out of that beard. That's what's going to happen.
You go off in Vegas, is go all with the air and drop it down
Yeah.
in the Northwest.
Well, here's what I heard is in his mindset right now. What did he say? Oh no, hell no, America's team, bro. You ain't America's team.
Who's this?
This is Cooper talking about Miami being America's team. They don't even have a quarterback.
Hey,
they got
Tua
a 5
said
game
that,
quarterback, man.
He contemplated retiring, but he said, after speaking with his wife and family, he's coming back. So, the thing, I'll be honest with you though, I think if that guy gets one more concussion, you have to sit.
Or has a problem on the field. Hold up 1 second. This motherfucker. All right. So what I heard
Thank you, Corey.
is they plan on doing is they're going to keep Arrowhead exactly where it is. They're going to remodel the entire stadium. They are going to build around, and what Clark wants to do is buy up all the surrounding homes. You know those crappy homes that are around there?
Mm-hmm.
Just buy up everything. He wants to build a shopping center. He wants to build everything just to wrap around it to where it's not such a
dump.
Yeah,
I don't know what else to say.
Older area.
What the Patriots did. That's what the Patriots did. There's a whole complex. There's a movie theater there. It's a whole.
And that's what his plans are.
Complex with a bunch of businesses, and I think that's what the Royals are going to try and do too with their baseball village.
Yeah.
So this is, and I think those are good for the area, right? I think part of the problem is simply that you have two different franchises there, and it's hard to agree on what you're going to do, and the fact that it is out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, there's not a ton.
Understand.
There's more junkyards than businesses out where the Royals and the Chiefs play.
But you do know that when that was originally built, back when the Kaufmans and Hunt got together, that was supposed to be a lifetime contract. They were never supposed to move from each other. That was what the whole deal was about. And it changed. But that was how it was supposed to be. They were supposed to stay there forever. That was and in fact, I actually have the blueprints, and one day I'll show them on the show where they were going to have a rolling dome on tracks, and Lamar
Oh,
came
I
up with this
remember
idea,
this.
and it would roll over both stadiums. It was
Yeah.
very cool, but
That was talked about when they renovated both stadiums. I think in like 2008 when they renovated
this was
both stadiums.
he was going
that
to do this in '69.
Yeah. That was one of the ideas that was thrown around is when they were renovating it, should they finally go through with that plan to implement the rolling dome?
It should have been done then, but I can tell you right now who stopped it. It was Davis. He stopped it. So Al Davis said, nobody else is going to have something like that. I don't think it's fair to the rest of the NFL. There was no domes at that time, and he stopped it.
Well, and
It was that one person.
It's expensive.
Well, but it wasn't coming out of anyone's pocket besides Lamar's. He didn't even ask the city for money for that deal. He was paying for that. And he had all the blueprints done. He paid for all of that. He had it all set up and ready to go. And then Al Davis threw a baby fit because he thought it was unfair to the rest of the NFL that no one else could do.
Well, he's in high California. It's unfair. He has nice 7-degree weather. And
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
If you live in Jackson County, you pay a 3/8 cents sales tax, and that's what paid for the renovations of the stadium at the time on both of them.
Okay.
So,
well, I'm talking about originally. He planned on paying for all of that on his own. He wasn't asking anybody for anything. He didn't ask the NFL. He didn't ask anybody. He was just going to pay for it. And it was kind of a combination deal between him and the Kaufmans. They planned on just covering the whole thing, and Al Davis put his timeouts on it because back then nobody had domes. Everything was open stadiums. So he thought it was unfair to the rest of the NFL. And he really fought it until they finally Lamar Hunt just said, you know what? You try to take credit for the NFL to begin with. And you had nothing to do with it, and you didn't even like the idea of it. And now you're doing this, pound sand. And that's basically what happened. But I still have I have a copy, the only copy, I think, of the original blueprints to that I was given. And I still have them somewhere. Pretty damn cool.
Yeah, you need to show bring them on the show sometime.
I will. They're my wife's got them packed somewhere with a bunch of other Chief stuff I have. But anyway, moving on. Now that we got away from the Royals debacle.
Next.
There's been a little bit of chatter. It seems like the Chiefs are visiting people multiple times right now, or having visits with certain draft players. One of them is Quentin. We know that. Quentin Johnson.
yeah, no, they visited me. I was real flexing. I was like, I'm sorry, I've got prior obligations, but I appreciate the offer.
All they were wanting from you, man, was they needed somebody to cook those gray hot dogs.
Hey,
I'm talking about Quentin Johnson.
Quentin will gotta do that for $70,000 a year.
I put that bad boy in the microwave. I got you. Okay.
Well, I'll tell you, Quentin Johnson is one of them that they have doubled down on, basically. And then they also looked at Broderick again.
Yep.
And
Philip mentioned him last night.
Yeah, he did. And Philip's been on fire with that. Got to give him all the credit in the world. He's killing it when it comes to that. But I know people are saying, well, it's just visits. But look, man, when it's multiple visits, they're seeing something. It's not just, we'll see him one time and then move on.
Mm-hmm.
I think. And now I'm not saying they're going to go after, they got him locked in or zoned in, because it's virtually the only way that's going to happen if each plays its cards exactly the way he has in the past. But he's pretty interested. And I think the workout with Mahomes helped a whole lot. So
is it, or is it just a camouflage, man? Or are they just kind of throwing up flares to get people's attention when they really are looking at
good at that too.
Offensive linemen and DNs? Because I think the kid out of K-State, that DN, was
Felix.
Felix.
I'm not going to say his last name. His name.
Don't even try.
I'm not even going to attempt it. No.
I think if that kid is around, I mean, it depending on me personally, I think they should go after a lineman in the first round if they can get a quality lineman. Say if they get to that, 31, and all those linemen, say the draft goes where all the real quality linemen are gone, and that kid's still around, you got to take that kid because he gives you instant juice on defense, man. And just think about the type of player he could potentially be with his size and his speed and his athleticism. And then now you start a 1-year defensive end, a rookie defensive end, and you still got Chris Jones in the middle. So that defense gets younger and it gets better. I think it gets better. The only thing that you lose is just the experience. But I think just like the rookies did last year, if he gets in there and he starts and gets snaps from the very first game, by the time the postseason comes, that guy's going to be a better player athletically than Frank Clark. Mentally, maybe not, because Frank Clark's got years of experience. I mean, he's got the second most sacks in playoff history. So,
hey, I just screenshotted Corey's. He's got him ranked around the 50th prospect. I got that screenshotted. That way, if he goes earlier, we can rub that in his face a little bit. Anyway.
Here's my thought. I don't want a wide receiver taken with the first pick. I do not think that.
I don't either.
Truly good. I was kind of hoping that people would be against me.
I'm against you, Quentin, for some reasons. But
Awesome. Okay. I think that now that's how you know we've made it, right? Where people disagree with me for no reason besides just to disagree with me. So I think that there's not really a prospect that is going to either make it, right? We've talked about the fact that there were multiple teams that they only have one wide receiver as a first round prospect. And that's it. So if there's only one, then he's not going to slide to 30. And I don't want to package up picks just to move up and grab a wide receiver. I think that you needed to go a lineman, offense or defensive lineman, with your first two picks. That's what I think you should do. That third round pick, 95, I think you can get a wide receiver at that spot, and then you can move forward, because I swear like 12 of the wide receivers in this draft are the exact same dude. They just went to different colleges. So you can get a guy with 95. I wouldn't be surprised they've got 2 picks in round 4 and they have 1 5th round pick, 2 6ths and 2 7ths. I wouldn't be surprised if they package maybe the 122, which they got from Miami, and 166, which is their 5th round pick. I bet they package up one of those or a couple of those, and they move back up into the 3rd round. So they end up picking 4 times within the top 100, so they can get somebody else. But pick 1 and 2. I want them to go offensive line or defensive line, however they feel is the better player, because I think that's where the highest need is. In a perfect world, I think that the Chiefs get someone they get DeJuan Jones, and they get one of the defensive linemen that ends up sliding in the draft, because that's going to happen, right? There's going to be a good prospect that gets drafted as a defensive end that we're going to come away from this draft and be like, I can't believe he fell that far in the draft.
I agree. I'm going to throw my 2 cents in, and you guys can have at it. I don't think we need to go after any wide receivers in the 1st round or 2nd round for that matter. I don't think we need to do it. Here's why. We can take any wide receiver that's of decent caliber and make them work within our system. We've already proven that. We already have a group of guys that are pretty damn good. And I think they're just growing and growing and growing. We've picked up a couple of good players. We got another one from the Giants. We don't need to go and waste a draft pick on a wide receiver, and we can package up and grab either a tight end, which I think we're going to grab, or maybe, and definitely in the 1st round, go after an offensive lineman, defensive lineman. That's my whole take on it. I don't see why we would waste any 1st round or 2nd round draft pick on a wide receiver in this class. Anybody else got anything?
If you got Quentin Johnson there, I feel like it's hard. It is hard, and I would take him, but I think ultimately what will happen is that they will go another direction. And if Quentin Johnson he will probably be taken at the top of 2nd, mid-2nd round. But like Quentin said, you got 11, 12 guys. It's just copy and paste, 5'11", 185, great route running, can run the whole route tree. There's no that dominant stud. Those dominant studs like a Jackson Smith and Jigma, Jordan Addison possibly-ish, but even he could fall. I mean, there's really not that huge guy. I think I said on the podcast last night, and I kind of echo what you guys said. I'd rather get a defensive lineman in the 1st and 2nd round, then find your offensive lineman in later rounds if possible. I mean, people are available. I think we're going to see, regardless of what happens, it's going to help benefit the Chiefs overall.
I kind of like what Philip's saying here right now.
Where's Will McDonald slated at? Because I haven't heard a lot
He is
about
at the
him.
end of the first round, they're saying.
Okay.
They think he could be
'Cause-
there possibly.
All right, because I gave him a pretty high grade. I mean, I watched the Big 12 a lot, and I watched him play, and I even wrote about him in an article. I mean, the guy, I think personally, he's just got this uncanny ability to recognize pass versus run like right off the snap. And I think that's what makes him so much better than most of the defensive ends in his class or outside linebackers, because he can decipher between that and then he can attack. And if you watch him over the last 2 years at Iowa State, he's an absolute menace in the backfield, man. He was doing against the run and the pass. And he's just so large and just physically gifted. And that's what I like about him. I think Felix would be a good still too, but a lot of people think that Felix won't even be there by the time we get, to the 31st pick comes around. So I don't know. How do you guys feel about Will McDonald? I mean, I think he's a good player.
Oh, I like him. I think he's a stud. Now, will the Chiefs get him? I think that's a whole nother story depending on who gets picked first. There could be a run at get the good defensive ends in the first round. It could maybe start into the mid to late seconds. I think if he's there, the Chiefs will possibly take him, but I wouldn't be surprised if they wait further down the line. I mean, you got that guy from Iowa. I forgot his name. Great defensive end. I mean, you got several good options. And
kid's good. That kid from
similar
Iowa.
kind
He's
of
very
the
good.
wide receivers. A lot of the defensive ends besides Jalen Carter are very similar. So it's kind of like pick the one you think has the most quote unquote upside and most athleticism. If that makes sense.
What Philip is saying right here, I actually agree with. I think they do bring back. I think they will try to bring back Clark, and they'll probably cut Cannondale and move forward. Draft his replacement. I wouldn't have a problem with that whatsoever. I would love to see Frank come back. It'd be great to see. What's Corey saying here? He says either DE or DT like what's his name? I can't see it. Cansey?
Cansey, that's the guy from
Cansey.
That's that kid
State.
from Pittsburgh State, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
He's
I really
good.
like him. He's also a guy that's smaller. Look, if when we're talking about the draft, where the Chiefs are drafting, there's no perfect prospect, right? Because if you're a perfect prospect, you're going early in the draft. So, when we talk about some of these guys and, when we say he has all these good things, but, right, we're always going to be drafting players that he lists all these good things, but this is his problem. So Cansey, for instance, he's good. He's got a lot of tools, right? He wasn't on a defensive line that was real dominant, so he was the one that was taking up a lot of the pressure. So one of his flaws is that he's smaller, right? And we've seen defensive tackles be successful in the NFL, and being smaller, but there are being next to Chris Jones, right? You aren't going to eat a ton of double blocks, so that's helpful, right? So I feel better drafting a smaller defensive tackle when I've got a Chris Jones next to me, because I know that you're not going to be the guy that they're going to really hit on. He's got some good pass rush moves, right? So my point is simply this, that you're never going to have a perfect guy drafting at 31 or 32, wherever Kansas City ends up. Hopefully it's 32 every year, but it's really going to be important to just find the guys that you think you can improve. And I think that's where, when we're talking about some of these guys, I do think we just need to get guys that are coachable. And there are going to be guys that slide. That's just how the draft works.
It never fails with the draft. It never fails.
I'm so into drafting a defensive lineman or an offensive lineman. The more and more I talk about this, I've fallen out of so many other positions, because I think that it's where the Chiefs need the most help.
Well, here's the thing. Corey is saying he thinks Felix and McDonald are too small for Spags. Spags likes the 270-pound, 6'7", 270-pound defensive ends. Here's the thing. He may, but he also didn't have Joe Cullen. And Joe Cullen,
that's a good point,
can absolutely work with a guy that size. I think, given the fact that we are in the position that we're in, with the coaching staff that we have, we can and who we have on the roster right now, I do believe that a smaller guy like that would do well. In our system,
and George
especially
Karlaftis,
again, like you said, sitting next to Chris Jones and Karlaftis and guys like that. I mean, I think we're okay with a little smaller guy. I'm not too concerned with that part of it.
George
Speed.
Karlaftis is 6'3", 266 pounds. So,
Ooh,
I mean, he's not
absolutely.
a huge guy.
No, he's not. And here's the thing. Again, we can go back to this all day long, but speed and technique over size will win every day of the week in that position. It just is what it is. You can be a smaller guy and have all the technique in the world and be able to blast by anybody. And that's something that it's inherently there. But you can also teach some of that, as we saw with Frank Clark going with Karlaftis. So I'm not really concerned about their size at all. I think it's more fit and scheme. If they can fit within the system, play within the system, they show the technique, they show the speed off the ball. They're gonna be the ones that are looked at more than some guy that weighs 300 pounds. I mean,
Yeah,
I think that's why they picked up Omenahu, because I think that he's going to play a lot more interior next to Chris Jones than probably most people think. Because if you think about it, if Chris is getting those double teams, if that guy's 1-on-1, that dude's a freak, man. And you get him in the middle line with Chris Jones, he's going to beat this guy off the bat probably a lot more often on a 1-on-1 than he would a double team. And if he doesn't have to take those double teams because of Chris, that's gonna be something nice to have in the interior of that defense that we haven't had before. I mean, we've had some guys that are quick, like Colin Saunders. I love his feet, quick feet, short, stout guy. But this guy's long. Who's long and rangy, and he's got speed, and I mean his arms are just freaking long as heck. And I think if you see how big Chris Jones is, Chris Jones is a monster. If you guys ever watch that top 100 players, and the guy comes in, he goes, "What do you think about Chris Jones?" He goes, "Well." He goes, first thing is Chris Jones is a large human being. He's like, you really don't realize how big he is.
He's
if you stand up next to him.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, he got up there almost 300 pounds. So, I mean, that's a big dude.
I've said next to him, he's tall. This guy is massive.
Yeah, he's massive. He's
and remember, Chris Jones was a second-round pick. So he was. You can find some. You can find star players. Later in the draft, you can find good defensive linemen later in the draft. And while of course, the reason why we talk about how good Chris Jones is because there's not a ton of players like him, right? I'm not saying that that's the sort of talent that's in this draft, but you can depend on your later round picks to be impact players. Like we saw that with the cornerback room this year. So just because we aren't picking early in the draft, we can still find impact players.
Hey. Real quick, Corey said, I need to get over this flu bug to go away because he woke up this morning sick with the flu. And, the draft is next week. Bro, that's not the flu bug. I'm just letting you know. Those little bumps that you're getting, they will go away. It just takes a little time. And there's no cure. Let's go to a commercial real quick. Because Corey's got to get over that bug. We'll be right back.
Underdog Fantasy is here to save your post-fantasy football season blues. The easiest place to play and win with the Underdog Fantasy app. Get up to 20 times your money in a single night with our Pick'em contests. Grab some insurance when setting your picks and win even when one pick fails. Go online now and use the promo code ChiefsFocus to double your deposit up to $100. Sit gingerbread, good girl.
All right, guys, we're back. Make sure you check out Underdog when you're plan on putting your bets out. That flu bug, man, it's rough. Anyway, I think what people are not really understanding with what Veach is doing right now is he's playing the game that everybody wants to play. What do you say?
We're just gonna go back and forth. We're just gonna
I don't even know what that says. I don't even understand what he's saying.
He's saying you look like Thanos from Avengers. We all know that's not true. JP does have the Infinity Stones when it comes to knowing people in the NFL community. So I have to have him give him that. So that
true.
really isn't a burn, to be honest.
It's not. I mean, that's actually weak. If you think about what Veach is doing right now, it's pretty genius, really. I mean, he's playing the game with every other GM in the league. They don't know where he's going to be. I'm telling you right now, in my opinion, I think Veach is going to jump in the draft.
Mhm.
I really do believe he's going to jump up in the draft because there's somebody he wants. And I think there's going to be a trade in this draft for a veteran player. If this one of the two deals he's looking at right now goes through, you're going to see a trade in the middle of the draft.
Should we
We
have a
don't
hint
need
on this
10
player?
draft picks. What's that?
Should we have a hint?
I gave it to you last night. I'll give it to you again. There's two. Talked about it last night. There's two different ones. One of them is in a kind of a precarious situation. And the other one just wants the hell out. So, if it works, it works. I'm okay with it. I mean, I'm not going to cry either way, but I'm going to be pretty happy if one of them does happen. I'll just leave it at that. But and I'm not going to give anything away on that situation. If you look at what Veach is doing, I think you're going to see that every other we're going to see the exact same thing we seen last year. I'm sorry, but there's no possibility we don't see this at some point, and I'm going to show it because it's hilarious. And we're going to see this, I think, again this year.
According to Ian Rappaport, Pacers are trading back.
They trade well, or they trade.
New England has traded six. Kansas City is now on the clock.
Meanwhile, the Patriots just traded down. The Chiefs just traded up from 29.
That dude said,
He did, yeah. I love how it's
that
not
was so
subtitles,
funny. The dude
but
just
it's
said,
so quiet and so clear that you can hear it.
yeah. He just whispered it out. It was so funny. I have a feeling that it's going to happen again, but it might be two teams, and I'm praying we get that film. I just want the film. That's all I care about.
How did they get the first part of the film? Who found? Where was that at? Was it in someone's documentary? I remember someone found it somewhere. I don't remember where it was though.
I think it was. I don't know if it was the NFL that was filming it at the time for a documentary, or if it was somebody with the Bills that were filming it for a documentary, or maybe one of their media guys, and it leaked. I can't really remember. All I know is it's funny as hell, and I'm happy. I'm happy that that it happened. I hope it happens again.
I think that's one of Veach's most underrated assets that he brings to the table as a GM. And I think he's done this better than any GM that we've had so far. Is that the man is a human networker, man, and he builds relationships with teams all across the NFL. If you go back in the history of the trades we've made with teams, just not even. We never used to trade anybody, with anyone in NFC, but even the AFC was very, stringent to try to get trades and to be able to have these relationships because nobody liked Carl Peterson. He's a jerk. So, but if you look at Veach, man, look how many trades he's pulled off with different people all over the NFL. It's not just one particular league. He does it in both. He's got this rapport that he's built because I believe it's because he's fair about his trade. He tries to make sure that they get a good trade and we get a good trade. It's not like it was, 15, 20 years ago where it's like, hey, whoever, was involved in the trade is always going to be a winner and loser. I think if you build that kind of rapport where people trust you, then they know that you're not going to try to screw them around. And so they're going to be open to more trades. And if you look at his last 2 years, look at the trades he's pulled off.
Yeah. I mean, the Orlando Brown trade, I think, was probably realistically, it was pretty rough on the Ravens. I mean, it was because at the time his draft capital was high, and to get him for what we got him for, and basically it was pretty much free. I mean, we did okay. You know what I just noticed though that I can do? I can put a guy like Corey in timeout, and he is in timeout right now.
Okay.
So he can't talk. He can't talk for 5 minutes.
Blocking for 5 minutes.
5 minutes, he's blocked. But I think the whole thing is that if we take into consideration, like you said, Tom, I mean, he the only team that he really had issues with was Arizona, with their old GM, and which is no longer there for health reasons, allegedly. I think he'll be able to make some moves that everybody's going to be pretty happy with. So I really do.
I have a question for you guys.
Sure.
Outside, we
Sure.
know the three needs we've talked about all offseason up to this point is offensive line, defensive line, and wide receiver.
Mhm.
I think what are some of the other needs that you think that Kansas City's going to address? Maybe looking into the future positions that they might draft. Personally, I think that the Chiefs need to draft a corner and a guard and a linebacker as well. I've got a corner that I think Kansas City might be interested in, but let me just hear your guys' thoughts right now as to some of the other positional needs that you think Kansas City will address with some later round picks.
Mhm. I think mainly, I mean, kind of goes what you said: offensive tackle, wide receiver. You need defensive line, both positions. I mean, someone that can play both, not both ways, but play both positions. I mean, there's a different facets of guys out there. It's just trying to find the right individual that's going to help benefit. Corner, I do agree with you there. Beach is always going to take 1 or 2 corners. Just continue to evolve that room because you never know what's going to happen.
I agree. It's so funny because Veach was like anti-corner for a while. He was all into he was more a safety guy than he was a corner guy, and he really didn't care so much about the corner position. But he's really come on strong with this, going after the corners. And I think maybe corner and another safety would definitely be depth-wise. We definitely need that.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that's where we're probably gonna, if we're gonna draft for depth, that's where we're gonna draft that, in my opinion. But what do you think, Tommy?
You got to also remember it's a passing league, so I think cornerback is always going to be something that they look at. Especially, I mean, say if one of the top corners, which will not happen, but say if they would drop as low as 31, I guarantee you Veach would have a hard time passing on it if the guy was at the top of his board as the number 1 or number 2 corner. If you look at what they did last year with the rookies and then with Snead, you lost Ward and you were able to kind of overcome some early season just kind of madness back there in the secondary with these guys trying to learn. You realize how important corner is. Your corners are typically as good as your defensive line can get pressure, but also too, if you look at some of the games in the second half of the season where we didn't get as good of a pass rush, the corners actually held their own. And it's because you had enough of them that you could spell them at times. You can have a rotation back there.
Exactly.
You really didn't have to leave somebody on the island a lot, I think. So if you can get another guy like they did with McDuffie or somebody like that, I think you go get them. I just think this year, though, your number one need is going to be that offensive line because I think no matter what, you have to protect Patrick Mahomes. And if you think about the possibility of not getting D-Hop or not getting somebody that's going to maybe be a huge contributor in year one, you at least want to have your guy upright so that he can make these guys who aren't as good who have only been mediocre to this point in their career. If he's upright, he can give them that opportunity to take the next step. Because if you look at all the guys, we go back to Albert Wilson, man. Mahomes is why Albert Wilson got paid in Miami.
Yeah.
He ain't done a lot since then. But that just tells you how good Mahomes can take a player that's a little bit above average in the league and make him to a legitimate starter and producer in the NFL.
Or average at that. I mean, for that matter. I mean, some of the guys. I mean, I think if you look at Chris Conley and Albert Wilson, Chris Conley was a better wide receiver than Albert Wilson, but they both got paid after their first season with Mahomes. So you're right. It just proves how he can elevate people, and he's very good at elevating. Strange, man. I've never seen a quarterback that is able to elevate a defense. That just doesn't happen. I mean, you don't see too many quarterbacks are able to go out there and make an entire team good, to make them want to be better than they are. And he does that. But
I think a lot of that goes to Chris Jones too. I think that mentality also comes from Chris Jones and just that leadership quality that he has. I don't think we give enough credit to Chris Jones for the leadership that he has on the field. So I think that's important there too. Do you guys want to hear about a cornerback that I think Kansas City can pick with a 6th or 7th round?
Go ahead.
Let's hear
There's
it.
a guy from Syracuse named Garrett Williams. Okay. I don't know if you guys have heard about him before. He missed the second half of the season with a torn ACL, right? So he blew his knee out. That's why I think he slides into the late rounds because he is a risk there. But we know Kansas City will pick guys that have some previous injuries, and we know the NFL is scared about picking up guys like that that have some significant injury history. So he played at Syracuse. He played 3 straight years, got a couple of interceptions. One of his most impressive things is that he didn't have a single penalty over his last 2 years. So he's not handsy, which makes me very happy because nothing is more frustrating to get in an illegal contact or a defensive holding when, on the when the ball is thrown to the other side of the field and that flag comes out and it's a 5-yard penalty on automatic first down. It's one of the most frustrating things you can see as a football fan. He does allow some of those contested catches, right? So he can get jumped up on, but I mean, that's a problem for a lot of corners in the league. A lot of that is a size issue. So he's got, some stuff that I would be a little hesitant about, but I do think that you could say that about a lot of the corners Kansas City drafted last year, right? That those guys they drafted in the late rounds, we've seen them give up contested catches. So I think because of his knee issue, right, tearing his ACL, he did tear it right in the middle of the season, so he'll be ready to go for the Chiefs start of the year, assuming everything goes right. And if Kansas City drafts him, that means that they did check out his medicals and they feel confident in his knee. But that's a guy I think that could slide in the draft. And with a 6th or a 7th round pick, Garrett Williams could be that number 4 corner in the room. And a lot like wide receiver, cornerback's a room you just got to throw numbers at.
I actually agree with you. And looking at how Veach drafts secondary players, whether it be, I think, in fact, McDuffie, he was 4th round, right?
No, McDuffie was first.
Oh, first round. I'm sorry, first round. Who was our 4th round? Snead was
last couple years ago. It was our
a couple years
rounder.
ago. Snead was 4th. Yeah. If you look at what he's done, you can grab a quality player in the secondary out of pretty much any round. But you have to also remember our coaching staff has really changed a lot over 1 year. And I think that has so much to do with it. It plays such a huge part in the way this team has changed. If you go back 3 years and remember when we had Breezy, which I love Breezy. I did. He was one of my favorite players because he was aggressive. And, he played that position as it really should have been played that you can't do anymore. It kind of is what it is. And that's why he got called so much at the time. But he was one of our better players. We had Marcus Peters, which if he wasn't getting penalized, he was getting burnt or he was burnt. The guy was burnt.
Marcus Peters is a great second corner. Because if you have a star corner at the on the other side, Marcus Peters, the quarterback is forced to throw the ball in Marcus Peters' area, and you're okay with him playing his aggressive style of football and to get turnovers. And when it's that boom or bust, it's like you can either get an interception or you're going to give up a 15-yard pass. You're okay with that. The problem with it is when he's your number 1 corner and the quarterback can either throw the ball the other way or you're giving up those big passes more often because the quarterback is just willing to throw the ball numbers wise more often in that direction. So
do you think he bought a new red towel? Do you think he still has the same red bullfighter towel that he had when he played for the Chiefs? You just said Olay and let motherfuckers just run right by him? Or do you think – because I know he's a free agent right now. Am I wrong?
He's not a man corner. That's the biggest problem that he had in Kansas City, and the league found it out because if you want to know what a perfect zone corner looks like, it's Marcus Peters. He's perfect in zone. Like he is because he's got enough skill and agility where he can, if you're watching, he can be looking in the backfield and still back up. And
he's very good at baiting quarterbacks.
Yes, very good.
He's got a lot. He's got good. The point you're making. He's got good footwork, right? He's like a center fielder at baseball, right? His first step is always right. You never see him trying to watch the ball and step in the wrong direction and then he can't make it. He's a guy that just is able to find the ball quickly and is able to that's why he's able to get some of those interceptions. So it's impressive the way that he's able to do that. And you're right, he's a good zone man, but it doesn't help when he needs to be the number 2 corner. It just to utilize his skill set better.
Well, the thing is, look, the game has evolved, and these players have become accustomed to playing the position the way they have to play it. Where you look at a guy like Peters, it still hasn't become accustomed to that. That's why Breezy's no longer in the league. I mean, he's doing his music thing, which is all cool. I mean, I like Breezy. He's a cool guy. But it's just one of those things to where you have to adjust yourself as a corner because that's the hardest position to play. I'm sorry, but it is.
It is.
And when you got look, man, when you're watching a quarterback's eyes, a quarterback's feet, a running back, 2 wide receivers, you got no help over the top, and then you also have to play against the refs because they got the flag in their hand ready to throw it.
Yeah.
That's a hard-ass position to play. I mean, I don't care who you are. What I like about what Snead has been able to do, and McDuffie as well, is minimize the penalties. And that's the one thing that we always struggled with, especially in the secondary, was penalties. Whether it be Breezy, whether it be Peters. Ward didn't have very many penalties. He was a very consistent corner. He wasn't the pick machine, but he didn't allow a whole lot to get by him. And that's what I loved about Ward, and I was a little upset that he left. But, I mean, he got paid.
He got like $15 million a year from
I think it was 14 to 16,
14,
something like
15,
that. Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean,
the Dallas Cowboys practice squad.
Yeah.
What'd you say? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, Butker was off of the Panthers practice squad.
Yep.
Absolutely.
That's how we got him.
Yeah.
And this is how Brett Veach does his homework, because Brett Veach said in a press conference or in an interview, I can't remember which one, he said that they had him on his draft board. They had Butker on their draft board when they were looking him over, and they had him as like a 6th or 7th round pick that year. But he was snagged up, or they just didn't have enough picks to get him. But he was on their draft board. And
you see how that works out, though, Quentin?
Yeah, when our kicker, I think was that Santos at the time? Cairo
Yes.
Santos.
Yeah.
He got
Santos.
hit in San Diego, right? I think they
He had a
were still
groin
in
injury.
San Diego, and it was a late hit, and so he got hurt, and then we were able to snag up a kicker off of the Panthers practice squad, and now he's a 2-time Super Bowl champion.
Yeah, it was a
Nice.
groin injury is what he was. I mean, it just is what it is. He had a groin injury, and we picked him up, and the rest was history. But it's funny how it works out when you look at what Veach does. He always gets his guy. Have you guys not noticed that? Look, he wanted Butker, he got him. What, a year later? He wanted Kadarius Toney, he got him basically within a year.
For a 6th round pick.
For a 6th round pick, he always gets his guy. If he doesn't get him in the draft, he will look at it and go, you know what? He'll never work in that system. I'll get him back. And
that's what happens.
I think he's probably picked up 4 or 5 players that he wanted in the draft and couldn't get, and they're now either on our team or have been on our team. So I love the fact that he's able to do that. I really am happy that he's got that rapport and that he's got an ability that I've never seen a GM have. I honestly got to say that. He's probably the best I've ever seen. But he had the best tutelage. When you got Andy Reid, when you're picking up Big Macs for Andy Reid, you're learning. It's that simple. I mean, you're learning, man. And when Andy says, go get me 2 Big Macs and 2 fries and a Diet Coke, don't know what the hell the Diet Coke was about because you just ate 2 Big Macs and 2 large fries. Regardless, you're learning from the man, and he learned from the best. And when you learn from the best, you become the best.
And he came over. He's one of the first 2 that came over when Andy got the job.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
Was with Andy for all those years, so he knows football, and plus he's played, so he understands the game.
In fact, it's comical. He said that he didn't think he was going to get to stay with Andy when he interned with him. He thought he screwed up. Andy had him doing this crazy stuff. It was weird. Like Andy was going on like vacation or something, or was doing something. He goes, I want you to go over the draft, and I want you to pick out 5 players, and I want every single stat. I want every single play the guy did in college. I want to know what he did in high school. I want to know what kind of food he likes. I mean, he gave him some weird stuff. And Brett Veach spent 4 straight days doing this day in, day out, staying up, not sleeping, didn't see his kids, missed some stuff,
Mhm.
all this crazy stuff that he had to do. And then he was worried that he didn't do it right because when he handed it to Andy, Andy said, "Okay, great, thanks," and he just laid it down. And that was it. And he was like, "Oh man, he's going to launch me right
I
now."
want some recognition for spending 4 days straight in
Yeah.
his house.
And he went back to him and he said, "The only reason I had to do that is to see if you could, not to see if you would, but to see if you could." And he did. Andy never really said anything about how great it was, what a good job he did at first. So Veach thought he did something wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. He was just Andy wanted to see if he could actually do it, and he was just it was a
weed
teaching
out
moment for
It's
him.
a weed out tool.
Yeah.
Are you willing to go the extra mile and find all the different things about them?
It's like when you're
And look where
applying
he's
for a
at now.
job and the application process online is 7 pages asking you the same questions that it was on
Over
your
and over.
resume.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When
And
you
they
see
ask
that
you-
assessment that pops up, you know that assessment? Remember those old assessments? Because I used to send them out to employees all the time. And it would be 5 pages, and it was the same question asked different ways on all
Yes.
5 pages to see if they would answer it the same way or if they understood the question in 5 different ways.
Mhm.
That's what he did with Veach. So, hey, man, look, I remember, and I know you guys will remember this. When Veach won the first Super Bowl, when that first Super Bowl was done, they went up to him and they went to talk to him, and Veach grabbed his pants and he pulled him up, man. He was so proud of himself because the question they asked him was something about players that he brought in or personnel. I don't remember what it was. And, man, he just pulled them pants up, and he was so proud to give them that answer because, look, you got to figure this is a guy that came as an intern and is now a Super Bowl winning GM because of the people that he picked. No matter how you look at it, everybody that we had from 2014 on, well, 13 really, was a Veach find. Yeah, Dorsey got the credit for it, but Veach is the one that went out and scouted him. Dorsey didn't leave that office. He had 3 tubs of ice cream and some cookies, and he said, "Go find me some
bad
players."
contracts.
And bad contracts. That's exactly what he had. Now, what do you mean? What does stagger mean? Does anybody know what stagger a contract means? Can somebody tell me what that means? Because I can't figure it out. All I know is that I got 3 players taking up 65% of my cap this year. What does stagger mean? Because I can't figure that out. I guarantee you.
I can give
if you look
the
up stagger in the
definition.
dictionary right now, it's his picture's next to it. Because it's going to say this is how you not stagger. Because Hooker didn't know how to do it. He had no clue how to stagger a contract. I mean, look at 3 players taking up $60 million. Huh?
Didn't he come from New England?
No, Scott Pioli came from New England.
Yeah, Pioli came from New England.
I don't
Wasn't he
remember
with the
if
Browns as a scout for a while? And then
no, because I think he went back to because he went back to the Browns.
Yeah,
he worked,
and
after
we
he
predicted
left
him
here,
to get
he went
launched.
To the Browns.
Yeah.
So,
that was comical. That was a great year for us.
Came from.
That was a great year for us at Chiefs Focus because we predicted him like none other. What he was going to happen to him. We actually, I think, predicted the games they were going to win and when he was going to get fired. And it was it was great for us.
And I quote, "He will not make it out the first season." And lo and behold, he did not make it out the first season.
Man, this poor guy. I mean, he's just not good at what he does.
Oh,
there's certain things he's great at.
He came from Green Bay, didn't he?
Green Bay, that's right. Green Bay.
He played for the Packers.
Oh,
I thought he was in there.
Well, I think he was with what's his name? Not McCarthy, but the one before him. Damn it. What was the coach that was? I can't think of his name right now. He's retired, but it was the Brett Favre's coach, right before McCarthy.
I don't know.
Can't think of his name right now.
Yeah,
but I think he was with him too. But I could be. I mean, anyway, regardless, it doesn't matter. I don't know what he's doing now. I think he's
hanging out with Carl Peterson,
probably somewhere.
I think he's with the Lions, isn't he?
I don't know. He was with somebody else last year.
Now with the Lions, I think you're right.
Yeah, he was with somebody else last year though. It wasn't the Lions, I don't believe.
No, I think he went from the Lions. No, he went from the Browns to the Lions.
Oh, he did go to the Lions and stayed?
I think so. I'm looking up.
What is he doing? Is he a scout?
He's probably special assistant to the executive, right? Like it's just
kind of like
a term that they made up. Like he's in the office and he's giving his opinions, but it's not, special assistant. It's like when guys get hired by head coaches and they don't have an official role, so they just call him like special assistant to the head coach.
Kind of like Sutton.
Whatever.
kind of like Sutton
Yeah.
was. He was an
he's a
advisor to the
personnel
DM.
executive.
Boom. That's a made up name.
He's a
That's
what?
Senior personnel executive.
Senior personnel or junior?
Yep. Senior
Oh,
personnel
okay. Right. I
executive.
didn't know which one he said. Okay, well, I mean that's kind of what they did with Sutton too. He was an advisor to somebody. I don't know, executive advisor role. I don't know. Somebody made up something because they had a little extra cash in the payroll and they had to pay somebody. Ain't nobody gonna hire
shattering
him.
defensive scheme.
Yeah. Pretty amazing to me. Hold on. So what are you guys' when we come back from this commercial? I want to know what your guys' thoughts are, or I want to know what you think our chances are of snagging either DeJuan Jones or Washington in the first round. Which way do you think we're going to go? If it was those two players, which way would we go? We'll be right back.
Underdog Fantasy is here to save your post-fantasy football season blues. The easiest place to play and win with the Underdog Fantasy app. Get up to 20 times your money in a single night with our Pick'em contests. Grab some insurance when setting your picks and win even when one pick fails. Go online now and use the promo code Chiefs Focus to double your deposit up to $100. Sit gingerbread, good girl.
Okay, we're back. I'm sorry, I meant Quentin Johnson. I don't know why Washington was in my mind for some reason. Quentin Johnson or DeJuan Jones. Who do you think the Chiefs are going to go after in the first round? If it's a first round thing.
DeJuan Jones all
I'll just
day,
go first.
man.
Okay.
I think
who do you think?
I think Jones, because your right tackle on a 4-year contract with the 5th-year option is more valuable than a look. I think Quentin Johnston is he's a kind of boomer bust prospect anyways. I think that he's going to have whoever he goes to, right? As long as they have a competent quarterback, I think he's going to have, like one game where he just goes off. He'll have like 125 yards and, 2 touchdowns. But a lot of the times he's just going to be like a 50-yard receiver game. And he'll have that one game that, will come on the show and be like, man, we could have had this guy and that'll be it. But he's kind of a boomer bust prospect to me. I would much rather have your right tackle figured out for the next 4 or 5 years, especially because if you're the offensive line, you're paying a couple of guys already, and you're going to have to pay or a Trey Smith or a Creed Humphrey moving forward, right? One of those guys is going to be the odd man out. So you need to make sure moving forward that you're continuing to rotate pieces on the offensive line, because you can pay 2 guys on your line as long as the rest of them are really cheap. So if you have an opportunity to solidify your right tackle for the next 4 years, you have to jump at that. Wide receiver, there are so many other options that you can get similar production from that I would much rather pay. I would much rather get my right tackle and just have Mahomes elevate whatever wide receiver you get.
Here's another way to look at it too. Think about it this way. First-year wide receivers in this offense have not been big producers. First-year offensive linemen in this in this system have fared pretty well. Just think about it like that. So you know more than not that if you draft a guy in the first round and put him with that already solid offensive line, he's most likely going to contribute in a major way his first year. Where if you go after receiver first and you slip and don't get the guy that you probably need at right tackle, now you're trying to nurse 2 holes, specifically both on offense, right? So I think you go ahead and do the lineman first because, like I said, like we talked about earlier with the receivers, we can make it with receivers that we have and, patch a couple more in as we go because there's going to be people that are either cut or let go after the draft because you got to make room and, they got to get money out. They got to get, money off the cap and all this other stuff. So I think you definitely go offensive line. And I also, too, another Chiefs talk on the rocks. I love the Anton Harrison selection, too. I think that's probably your number 2 pick if Jones is gone. I think you go with him. Now, if I'm not mistaken, did he play left tackle or right tackle? Anton
Who?
Harrison.
I'm not for sure.
I'm not real sure. But here's the thing. Okay, so when I posed this question, I said if there was only 2 players in the first round to pick from, which one? And you guys understood that if there were the only 2 players left, it was either Quentin Johnson or DeJuan Jones. This is what apparently Corey's flu kicked in, because I was only talking about 2 specific players that nobody else was left. But I like his pick. I agree with him on that. I will give him that. He's got.
I think you go at this point. You go for the hope is for the protection of Mahomes. You can get pretty much anyone at wide receiver. At this point, we realize that Mahomes has shown that. Go for your offensive alignment. Invest in those picks. Invest in those guys. Make sure they're reliable and helpful. And I think once the Chiefs do that, it's gonna just trickle down economics, or trickle down football, where it's going to benefit the entire offensive line. I mean, I think it was Corey just said, she's talking to Rock, says he thinks Tooney is gone soon. And I agree with him. Tooney's going to be gone soon. You're going to have someone else coming. So don't be surprised if we get the right tackle when we draft a guard in this draft as well. I mean, we have a lot of picks. That contract is back on unless they work out a deal. But what we're going to see is that Veach always likes to draft a year ahead. He always does. So don't be surprised if they do offensive line, defensive line, a couple picks from both of those areas.
Okay. Philip seems to think Broderick Jones, Anton Harrison, because they can both come in day one and play their natural left tackle positions. Taylor is a natural right tackle. He's probably right about that. I wouldn't bark at what he's saying. I think it's pretty correct.
I think both scenarios work though, because if you think about it again, you talk about the strength of the offense, minus Mahomes. I mean, your biggest strength is that offensive line, and so it doesn't really matter which side that you plug in. If you want to plug in a rookie at left tackle, I think it works, or if you want to plug in a rookie at right tackle, I think it works because the line is already so strong. I think where you probably, and I know the questions about those 2 players, but I think the place where if you don't get help right now, I think that it's going to hurt worse is the defensive line. And I think it's more because of depth there. I don't think we have the depth that we really need. Because if you think about it, really good defensive lines, they're, if you got your 4 starters, you're probably almost 7 to 8 deep where you can rotate in and out like that, because you got to think about injury. Plus you got to think about just wear and tear during the season. And right now, I think you guys have talked about this before. I think you said we got Tershawn Wharton coming back. And then I think it was like maybe one other player, right, coming back from last year's squad that's like a backup type, player. So I think that's, for me right now, that's probably where I'm most concerned. So I really do think the Chiefs will take care of the offensive line in the first round. But the defensive line is where, because I don't really think the defensive line is as deep. I mean, the edge rushers are, but I don't think D tackles that deep this year in the draft, at least with quality D tackles. And that's probably where, I'm thinking that if Veach doesn't secure something nice in the draft, he'll probably go pick up something in free agency.
Let me pose a question to you guys. Thinking about how Mahomes has played with minimal offensive lines. Okay, I mean, you had Wiley that allowed 9 to 11 sacks and gave up, I think, 58% on the pressures. Then you had Orlando Brown that was struggling. He gave up only 4 sacks, but he allowed over 50% on pressures. But yet Mahomes was still able to do his thing and not really get injured. The injury didn't come from that. It really came from him running more than anything, the ankle injury. So do you think that Veach in his mind is going, okay, if we go in to this draft and we pull up, we don't have to go into the first round to grab offensive line. We need edge rushers first because Mahomes is mobile and he's able to work with somewhat minimal offensive line. And I'm not saying a bunch of weak guys. I'm not saying a bunch of 4-string guys are really, I don't want what we had in 2020, but I'm saying guys that will
have this year,
similar to what we had this year, comparable to what we had this year.
I think the older Mahomes gets, the more you're going to have to invest in the offensive line more and more and more and more, and that's going to be our priority at the end of the day. I feel like they're just going to take whoever the best available player there. Rather if it's an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman, they're going to take the best available.
Patrick
I kind of
Mahomes
agree.
can elevate the wide receiver room. He can't really elevate the offensive line. Yes, there are ways that you can play that, sacks are somewhat of a quarterback stat. I've talked about that before. The reason why Russell Wilson continues to have high sacks is because of the way he plays, especially when he's at Seattle with the way he would run around. So it is partially a quarterback stat. But wide receivers are 100% dependent on the quarterback. So if I'm gonna spend less resources in terms of money, right, trying to get or top end talent in the draft at one of those two spots, tackle or wide receiver, I would much rather it be spending less of those resources at the wide receiver because I have the best quarterback in the league. And on the other side too, I still have Travis Kelce. That makes this conversation way easier because I have a number one wide receiver in Travis Kelce. And even though we can't expect him to continue to produce at the level he did this year, I still think that he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. And defenses have to respect that. So they're going to play him like a number one wide receiver who just plays a lot on the line. And that conversation, anytime we talk about the wide receiver production, we have to include Travis Kelce in this because he puts up, more yards than a lot of number one wide receivers.
I'm going to give you a hot take. I have a feeling that Veach goes after.
I love me some hot takes. This better be spicy.
I have a feeling Veach goes after a tight end in the first round.
Hey, if they can do that, great. I would not complain. If they get specifically the right guy, I'm not going to complain one bit.
Just something I'm thinking. I don't know where Corey, I don't know why he tends to seem to think this is going to happen.
That's, I don't know.
Not going to happen
We're
this
not
year.
at that point yet.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen this year. Maybe next year, but not this year.
Yeah,
I don't see Gay going anywhere.
Yeah, I don't see
absolutely.
I don't see Willie Gay being traded. But if out of the two between Willie Gay or Snead, I think it's Snead because he just has more value to him in terms of being traded. But I just don't know. There doesn't seem to be a top corner that you're able to draft to replace his production.
No.
I think Gay. I've already given my take. I don't think Gay re-signs here. I think he ends up walking. The team seems to trust Leo Chenal, and we saw that in his snaps and his ability to cover. He was really good in pass coverage, which is why we drafted Gay to begin with. So I think Gay ends up walking.
Quentin, when I said this 2 weeks ago, you were like, "I'm crazy."
No,
But
I know.
no.
I said
Did you
that.
yes or no? Did you yes or no?
I said that was my hot take in the middle of the season. If the Chiefs end up drafting a linebacker later in the draft with a fifth, sixth, whatever, then Willie Gay is not coming back.
Oh shit! Here we go again.
See, I was thinking that the Tranquil signing was more of an indicator than anything. But when I saw that they only signed him to a 1-year deal, that was kind of surprising to me as well. But I could easily see if they would have signed Tranquil to a multi-year deal that he would be taking Gay's spot in the future.
Well, my question is, why would they do anything with Gay right now anyway?
Nah,
why would they
cheap.
move him this year at all?
They're going to keep him.
It's not beneficial to move him at all right now.
And it's an
not,
inside
we don't
linebacker.
need the draft picks.
They're not valuable, right?
But we don't need
it's
the
not
draft
a valuable
picks.
position.
Okay, but what's the point in moving him though? Exactly, my point. He's valuable to us. He's done a great job. So what's the point in moving him if it's not going to benefit us with 10 draft picks sitting on the board right now? We're not going to be able to,
You'd have to get 2024 assets for him, and I just don't think whatever you get in return is going to be
not going to be worth
more than it. I just think that it's an inside linebacker position, and that's not as valuable. If we were talking 2000, even like a decade ago, 2013, 14, you could probably get some good stuff for him because Willie Gay is athletic, but the inside linebacker position just isn't that valuable. And he's the number 2 inside linebacker with Nick Bolton playing.
And I feel we're at the point now where we're having linebackers and they're more hybrid players, hybrid linebackers and safeties just due to how the game is now. I think we're at that point. Willie Gay can still play. I just think that's what we're going to see the Chiefs eventually move to. That's why they got that Tranquil guy. Phil just mentioned from the Raiders. I mean, his job was to stay on Kelsey. And did he get Kelsey a couple times? But Kelsey got him. But we see if you can get guys like that in your linebacking core, it's just going to be beneficial overall. You're dealing with 5 high-power offenses that are not running the ball that much. And we're to see the NFLs are completely different from what it was 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, even 10 years ago.
Willie Gay is Juan Thornhill, just at a different position. He's a solid player. You need guys like them. You need them on their rookie contracts, and another team is going to go out and give him a nice 3 or 4 year deal with a fat signing bonus. And thank you for your help. I hope you have a good career unless you're facing Kansas City. There's going to be a ton of players. In order for the Chiefs to be good for the rest of the Mahomes era and for however long, the NFL goes, you need guys on rookie contracts because you can't have guys on veteran deals all across the board. You can't afford it, especially when you're paying your quarterback $500 million.
Well, but I like the way we're paying our quarterback $500 million. I like the fact that I like the amount of cap space he takes up compared to all these other fools that are signing guys for 20 and 30% of their cap space. Go ahead, keep doing it. Sign them with 50% of your cap space. Who gives a shit? You're never going to be able to sign anybody that's going to be able, because they're not quarterbacks that can use average wide receivers and make them better where Mahomes is. So if you go and you decide you want to take up 40% of your cap space for a Jalen Hurts, and then you can't pay A.J. Brown and another wide receiver and another tight end and everybody else you need to keep that offense going because you need all those weapons around him, or even a Joe Burrow, because Joe Burrow's had 2 of the best wide receivers in the league, and he still hasn't been able to win a Super Bowl. He's gotten to one because of a weak schedule and some bad calls, but he wasn't able to win one. And if they give him that it both, like Quentin said, it bolstered their value, especially Burrow. As much as I can't stand him, it bolstered his value. And you can spend all the money you want. Give him $65 million a year. I don't care, because then you got to sign Chase. You got to figure out what you're going to do about a second wide receiver, and then you have to figure out what you're going to have to do. I think Eli Apple's a free agent. Thank God.
We'll take Higgins. We'll take Higgins in Kansas City, man. I'll take
Higgins. Can come here all day long. What Philip said here, I think I agree with him. The Chiefs linebacking unit is very underrated. Bolton, Gay, Tranquil, and Chenal. It is scary, because when you got guys that are that quick and that can play that spy linebacker position, chase down a wide receiver, if something gets by your first line of defense, you got guys that are fast enough and strong enough to bring them down. And I think that's why I value, more than maybe most people do, I value the linebacker position, because those guys not only are they run stoppers, but they're also pass defenders. And that's something that 10, 15 years ago, you didn't see that as much at linebacker. But now you got, who was it that we got rid of? Anthony Hitchens. Slow he got. Or, towards the end of his career, he got very slow. And as the speed dropped, his play dropped. And then you seen him chasing down a 4'9", 40 wide receiver and couldn't catch him. Where Willie Gay can do that. Nick Bolton can do that, for that matter. Chenal can definitely do it. And then you got Tranquil on top of it. I just feel like those guys, because of their size, they're oversized safeties, inside safeties, spy rovers that fill a position of need, and people are underrated them. And I agree with Philip on that 100%. So, anyway, I think we're going to be a little scary this year. I think this year we're going to surprise people again. I think it's going to look. If anybody's looked at any of the Vegas numbers right now, the Chiefs haven't moved 1 point from going back-to-back Super Bowls and winning them. With losing the players that they've lost, they have not dropped an ounce. They are still the Super Bowl favorites this year to go and win the Super Bowl. If Vegas is putting those odds out there, And I would say, okay, if it's one or two, okay. But when you got everybody and all these outside guys like Underdog and all these other people saying it's going to be the Chiefs, it's going to be the Chiefs, it's going to be the Chiefs, they were saying that shit before they even knew the schedule.
Who did they have at number 2? Is it the Eagles?
No, I thought it was. It might be the Eagles, but I don't know. That dropped tremendous. The Eagles actually did drop at one point because they lost their offensive and defensive coordinator.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I think the 49ers are going to – I do think the 49ers are going to come out the NFC this year. I think if they had a quarterback, they would have came out last year because of their defense, man. And their defense is strong, dude. And that's one thing I like about the 49ers, that if you look at them the last 5 years, every single year, man, they're either in the NFC Championship game or like in the freaking fourth quarter fighting to go to it. Like,
and
they're
you know
always there.
What I like about what you just said, it's 100% true. They are, if you look at all the top 3 defenses in the league last year, they were a true top 1-2 defense. No matter who they played, they fought hard. No, it didn't matter who it was. They fought hard. They kept, other than the Eagles when they were just down on their luck in the playoffs, everybody was down. It was kind of like how we were in the 2020 Super Bowl. We had no offensive line. Tyreek Hill was letting balls bounce off his face. Nobody was catching anything. It was a horrible, and Mahomes is out there, horizontal trying to make passes, and nobody was doing nothing. But that defense is a true top 3 every year, where you can say, okay, well, Jalen Hurts, or the Eagles had the best sack ratio since the '85 Bears and blah blah blah. Well, look who they played. They don't take into any of that into strength of schedule, and that's what's frustrating to me. I'm a firm believer in that. You can put people anywhere you want. You can throw the stats out there all day long, but if they're playing dog crap teams and terrible offenses, how are you going to rank them number 1? How are you going to rank them number 5? You can't rank them if they're not playing anybody. We've proved it in the Super Bowl. 0 sacks, 6 pressures. 0 sacks, 6 pressures. I don't think that is ever brought up enough. Because out of the 82 sacks that they had during the regular season and all the pressures they created, they couldn't do it against us in the biggest game of the season. I don't know what else to say, man. And look, their defensive line that was supposed to be historic and so great, we got to Jalen Hurts a lot. And you know who got to him? Willie Gay. Willie Gay chased his ass down 3 times. Colin Saunders. We actually ended up technically with 2 sacks on him. I don't know, man. Let's talk about strength of schedule before we start talking about top 5 anything. Because we had the toughest schedule in the first 9 weeks of the season, and it didn't get really too much easier the last half of the season, and we ended up 11th overall in defense and the top offense in the league. So anyway, I think with that, I don't know what else we got. You guys got any more?
I think we pretty much have covered pretty much everything tonight.
Yep. Well, I want to thank Fantasy Sports Corporation for letting us do this show. And make sure you check out Underdog Fantasy. We will be back on our channel tomorrow night to talk about some other things. And I want to bring up something tomorrow night about San Francisco that was brought up today. We could talk about it right now, but it would only take a couple of minutes. But it's up to you guys. We can do it tomorrow night.
We said for our show tomorrow night.
Yeah. It went on today, and we'll talk about it tomorrow night on our show. We appreciate everybody for joining, and we will talk to you tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central. Peace out, everybody.